Here with us from outside the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan now is our friend, the trial attorney, Misty Marris. All right, as I said, Misty, we were following it early. Now, we weren't following it. There's been a lot going on in the world, as you know, as much, but you have. So a couple of things. Let me, as we set this up, put up a screen we have of the big moments from the prosecution. People can read through this, a lot of which I just recapped there, but you see the assault on Cassie. Combs had to purchase security footage of that. Cassie testified about the assault, and then the Jane testimony that I just referred to. So prosecution laid out this in closing. How'd they do?
They did a great job, Connell. They started off very strong. They said, after 7 weeks, jury, you have seen that Sean Combs is the head of a criminal enterprise. They laid out their theme. They said he used his fame, his power, he used force, he used coercive tactics to get everybody around him to comply with whatever he wanted. He didn't know the word no. He also thought he was above the law. So all of that was part of the prosecution's theme and what they wanted the jury to look at, all of the evidence that they were going to reference throughout the closing through that prism. Now, they used a lot of strategies, which I think were very effective. They put up the elements of each charge, and they went through it and they applied all of the evidence to those legal standards. They started with RICO, that's the most complicated, and they really distilled everything down to something that was very digestible. And they took a lot of that salacious testimony, and Connell, we saw the video of Cassie Ventura from the Intercontinental Hotel in 2016, and they made that connection between the freak-offs, the commercial sex, with respect to the sex trafficking statute. So they did a good job of bringing everything together. And it was a big haul because we heard a lot of testimony, a lot of snapshots in time from each witness, and they laid it out in a really digestible way where applying all of that evidence to those legal standards.
Now, as we talked about and we know, the question in this case, as it is in any case, has never been, is the defendant, in this case Sean Combs, a good guy, right? That's not the question. The question is, did he commit the crimes that he's charged with, right? So what would you say about that? I'd say a couple of things here just to have you react to. For example, these freak-offs that we hear so much about, it was notable that they made it clear today that not all of them would constitute sex trafficking. They seemed like they wanted to be specific on that. And the second thing, coercion, right? So Jane, as we know this person, Jane, I talked about this in the introduction, talked about doing a lot of things, she didn't want to do. This text message, I don't want to play this role in your life anymore. It's dark, sleazy, makes me feel disgusted with myself. I feel it's the only reason you have me around and why you pay for the house. I don't want to feel obligated to perform these nights with you, fear of losing the roof over my head. To getting to that point, right, of being coerced.
Right. So they laid out both. There's two sex trafficking counts, and one relates to Cassie Ventura and the other relates to Jane.
Right.
With Cassie Ventura, there's an 11-year relationship. So to your point, Connell, they made the argument that it didn't mean that she had to have been forced into this every single time. And they talked about why it was evident that she was forced into the freak-offs, even if her text messages and other evidence showed that she might have been saying yes. And this was a critical component, Connell, because what the prosecution is doing is getting ahead of what they know the defense will focus on. They did the same thing with Jane. They said she was a consenting adult. The prosecution argues there was financial coercion, physical violence, and that she couldn't say no to what she called hotel nights. But the defense, they know, is going to try and undercut that with some communications that tend to show that they were both consenting to those sexual encounters. Now, one thing we don't talk about too much, we talk about the mindset of Cassie, the mindset of Jane. But what prosecutors laid out today is that Combs had to act with intent. And the reason they did this, they know that's what the jury instructions are going to say. So they said in the closing, he had a reckless disregard of reckless disregard to know that they were being coerced because of all that violence, because of his conduct and the pattern of conduct that he enforced upon them. And that's going to be sufficient to establish intent.
Okay.
Again, Connell, they're trying to get ahead of where the defense vulnerabilities might be.
All right, let me ask you one more thing then. Specifically on the racketeering charge, essentially saying that this guy is, like a mob boss at the head of a criminal enterprise. How do they do on that, specifically RICO?
I'm still thinking that this falls a little short. What they did a great job today by prosecutors was laying out what are called the predicate crimes. And they had a lot on there, Connell. They had drug distribution. This is kind of the low-hanging fruit, where drugs acquired and given to him or others in his sphere at his direction. They also had sex trafficking and prostitution are under that umbrella, obstruction of justice, arson, all of the stuff we've heard about, kidnapping. They did a good job of connecting that. But where I think you're going to see the defense get a lot of headway on RICO is the conspiracy. That's the threshold question. Did Combs conspire with at least one other person to engage in criminal activity in furtherance of a criminal enterprise? And guess what, Connell? They put the pictures of his co-conspirators up on the screen. As I said, they used a lot of visuals. None of those individuals testified. Not a one. Prosecutors did not put them on the stand. So if I'm the defense, I'm going to say, what do we have, a criminal conspiracy of one?
Right.
What's the criminal enterprise? It's just him? It has to be something more. So I think the defense is going to be able to get some traction on that tomorrow.
You never disappoint. Every time we talk about one of these things, I feel like I understand it better. So thank you, Misty. It's always great to have you on. Misty Marris from the courthouse.
Thank you, Connell.
On Diddy.